Okay, welcome everyone to our meeting of Tuesday, June 28th. The time is 1 p.m. We have a full complement of council today. We have some staff members with us present today, and we'll also have a public meeting today to do with some land reports. So anyways, I'll ask at this time that we call the meeting to order, and I will read the land acknowledgement. We respectively acknowledge that the township of Asphodel-Norwood is located on the Treaty 20 Mississauga territory and in the traditional territory of the Mississauga and Chippewa nations, collectively known as the Williams Treaties First Nations, which include Curve Lake, Hiawatha, Alderville, Scugog Island, Rama, Beausoleil, and Georgina Islands First Nations. We respectively acknowledge that the Williams Treaties First Nations are the stewards and caretakers of these lands and waters in perpetuity, and that they continue to maintain this responsibility to ensure their health and integrity for generations to come. At this time, I'll ask council then for a moment of silent reflection so we may reflect upon our duties of today as councillors. Thank you. I'll ask council if there's any declaration of any pecuniary interest at this time or time of subject. Seeing no hands, thank you. Approval of the agenda then, the recommendation that the Township of Asphodel-Norwood Council meeting agenda for June 28, 2022 be approved as circulated. Deputy Mayor Burt, Councillor Walsh, all in favor? And that's carried with a show of hands. Thank you. Approval of the minutes for council meeting minutes of June the 14th and the recommendation that these minutes for June the 14th be adopted as presented or amended. Councillor Archer as presented and seconded by Councillor Walsh. All in favor? And that's carried. Is there any business arising from those minutes, council? Seeing no hands, thank you. The consent agenda then, that's correspondence for information. So we have C1 in the minutes of the Norwood Asphodel Cemetery Board. R1, wait, let's a little confused here because I have C1. Nope, that's it. Sorry. Okay. So the recommendation that we approve the consent agenda as circulated. Deputy Mayor Burt, seconded by Councillor Walsh. Is there any discussion on any of these items? Nothing. All right. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. There's no delegations and presentations today, and we're on to staff and committee reports. So R1, Kyle's not here today, but this has got to do with the tender for the 2022-05 results for the water main upgrades to Highway number 7 to Victoria Street.
Thank you, Mayor. So in Kyle's absence, I will deliver his report today. Tender 2022-05, the results of the water main upgrades from Highway number 7 to Victoria Street. So essentially it'll come through the parking lot in behind the drugstore from Highway 7 and tie down around by the hardware store in that kind of gully in that wooded area there out to connect to Victoria Street. When the Victoria Street reconstruction project was underway, we did the tie-in to Victoria Street and went in out of the road allowance. So there'll be no impact to the Victoria Street road allowance. We already are out of that section. This was identified in the 2022 capital budget for the water department as it's one of the last remaining sections of water main that was installed in 1948. It supplies water to the businesses and apartments at Front County Road 45. Obviously, there's going to be some disruption throughout the course of the project to the parking in that area. We're not looking to commence the project till after Labor Day weekend to try to get out of the summer busy time, and it needs to be completed according to the tender by October 31st of this year. So there will be some site restoration, hydrant installation, new services up to including curb stops. This project was identified in the Township Asset Management Plan due to condition and age of the asset, again, steering back to the 1948 installation date. So it rose to the top as a priority. 2 tenders were received. one from Bain Construction Limited and the other from Baltair Contracting. You can see the tender amounts listed in the staff reports, with Bain Construction being the lesser of the two tenders submitted. Staff have reviewed all of the submissions, and there was nothing missing. All the requirements were in the tender, and we're comparing apples to apples. So with that said, as per the legal procurement and tender process, the lower bid is Bain Construction. So Township are satisfied with the submitted bid and are recommending to council that we award it to Bain Construction for a total impact of $189,638.53, exclusive of HST. I have added to Kyle's report the HST rebate, so you can, as an approximate, so you can see we'll have to pay approximately $3,400 in HST on top of that amount. When that is netted out, it's approximately $6,500 over budget. Again, that tends to be the theme that we're seeing in 2022 with tenders, but it's nowhere near the overages that we have been seeing in other tenders. It's $6,500 should be able to be absorbed into the 2022 capital budget for the department, but it'll be reevaluated at year end when all of the construction projects are done, whether we need to make a reserve allocation or not. And I will leave it with council for any questions.
Thank you, Candace. That was a pretty good detailed report. Any questions, council? Sir.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Just a couple of comments, actually. It was nice to see two bids because we haven't been seeing that. And I'm glad that that one came in really close to where we should be. And second, I really like the attachment that was included with the mapping and the clear map with the red arrow showing exactly where the water main would come. So I think if anyone's watching from the public, it's going to be easy to follow.
Thanks. Deputy Mayor Burt.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Yes, same as what Councillor Ward said. Now, Candace, you mentioned October 31st completion, so thinking that it will be started sometime after Labor Day. That's a realistic completion date. There shouldn't be any issues completing by the October 31st date. And if there is, what are the implications to the contractor? Are there any?
Well, it's construction.
Yes, and
So the goal is to have it completed by October 31st, obviously to get the asphalt laid in regulation and temperature spec. So that's the goal. It all depends on how grossly they're going to be outside of the contract, because it's construction and Mother Nature impacts construction. If we do have a rainy September and it is, or October, and it is delaying it, then we work with the contractor. But there is liquidated damages built into all of our contracts, which is a daily financial penalty for every day that you go over the contract. That said, it's difficult to enforce in a legal setting. So you're better off to work with the contractor and keep them on task and hope that Mother Nature is kind.
very good. Thank you.
Any other questions from council? Okay, so the recommendations that we award the construction to Bean Construction Limited and the amount of the 189,638.53. The HST motion by Councillor Archer, seconded by Councillor War. Any other questions on the motion? All in favor? And that's carried with a show of hands. Thank you. Okay, Candace, R2 then, our Candace White, our CAO Clerk Treasurer. This is the asset management addendum for core assets.
Thank you, Mayor. So part of Ontario Regulation 588-17 that was adopted in December of 2017 by the province of Ontario was updated legislation to address our asset management plan. And you can see I included in the staff report a time frame there. July 1st of 2019, we adopted our asset management policy. This council put that in motion. The second date, July 1st of 2022, was originally 2021, but with the pandemic, they gave an additional year to become compliant with the scope of work. And then, of course, July 1st, 2023 is the second There's more that goes out into 2025, but they're smaller pieces. But those are the next two main milestones. So what today's report and today's update and resolution is requesting, if with council's blessing, is it'll ensure that the township is compliant with that Ontario regulation. So to give a bit of background, asset management is a couple of pieces. The main component to it is a tangible capital asset subledger. And that subledger is housed in our citywide software. And it's a software that the finance department manages. And in that software is a listing of every asset that the township owns. And each asset is given an ID number. You can click on that asset and you can learn information such as the date it was purchased, who it was purchased from, the cost of the purchase. And over the life of that asset, if we say, for instance, I'll give you a prime example, due to the storm, we're replacing the roof on the town hall. That is considered a betterment to that asset over the capital threshold because it's over $5,000. So I would go into that asset and I would add a betterment to that of the amount of money that it costs. If we have to do a major repair to a piece of equipment or a facility, or a new playground piece of equipment, we don't necessarily add new assets. We better the assets that we have that could potentially extend the estimated useful life of that asset. In some cases, it doesn't impact the useful life. It's just bettering the asset. Each asset is given a lifespan depending on the asset. So for instance, water main, 75 years. But a roof, 25 years. It all depends on the asset. So it can be anywhere from 5 years to 75 years, depending on the asset itself. So a riding lawnmower that we use in parks that may be worth $7,500 isn't going to last as long as maybe the dump truck does. So you take that estimated useful life, the cost of the asset, you divide it out, and that's your asset depreciation per year. So technically, in a perfect world, in a perfect scenario, which none of us live in, we would be able to take the exact depreciated value of every single asset that we have and put that into a reserve so that it's there for its replacement. And I included that in the staff report so that council had some sort of understanding. So that's 2,722 assets for a historical cost of $60 million. Obviously, if you were to take that 60 million and actually that's historical cost. So that's what was originally purchased for. If we were to take that 60 million, add a CPI to it, or a cost of living adjustment, to a current replacement cost, we're going to be nowhere near the $60 million. Obviously, it's going to be substantially larger than that. What we purchased a grader for 15 years ago, I guarantee we're not purchasing a grader for that amount of money today. So what the province is trying to do, because we've been working on asset management since 2012 and it's progressed over the last decade, is to ensure that the province has a clear understanding of the condition and the financial burden of asset replacement on all levels of government, whether that's provincial, upper tier, such as Peterborough County, or lower tier, so that they can gauge things such as OMPF transfers. They can engage their funding streams that they have out, such as ICIP, the OCIF. Formula-based funding was a big one that the asset management plans were a driver for. So it's important for them to have a clear understanding, because unfortunately, prior to the legislation, when you think about when a village was formed and when a township was formed, and they did all of their infrastructure, such as most of our water main went in the ground the exact same year. Logistically, all of those assets then will retire in a very similar time frame. So they're going to all come due very close together. Obviously, there'll be the outliers that some may last longer and some may not last as long due to conditions. But overall, that's what's happened, because there was no financial planning 50 years ago, 40 years ago, 30 years ago, even 20 years ago, to deal with all of the assets that are now, from 1948 to now, are coming due to replace them. And it was to get municipalities to start to take a kind of a bird's eye view look as asset management that we started in 2012 by creating that database and listing all of our assets. And then now we're to the point where we're drilling down on that. We're drilling down on the database and actually implementing condition indexes as far as what's the condition of our asphalt, what's the condition of our gravel roads, what's the condition of our sidewalks, etc. Now, that said, there's engineers involved in the condition assessment, such as our roads needs study, and they have their preferred method of indexing versus if you were to drive down a road. I guarantee you, if I was to provide council with the road needs study index and you were to look at a asphalt road that they considered fair, and I didn't tell you they considered it fair, and you went and drove on that asphalt road, you would state that no, that's in good condition. That's actually in very good condition. So there is some perception in the indexing, but again, an engineer prepared the report. They have preferred indexing, and that's what drove this report. So the public works manager and I, although the addendum and the update to the asset management plan states, that most of our asphalt roads are in poor to fair condition, we feel they're more fair to good condition. Our surface treatment program and our asphalt program have been exceptional in the last decade and staying on top of all of those things. Obviously, gravel roads, it does include ongoing operations and maintenance. Gravel roads are expensive to maintain on an annual basis. Outside of a reserve allocation, an HCB road, which is a hard topped road with asphalt, is going to have a much different maintenance period, but the cost is still there because technically we should be putting money into reserves to whether that's going to be a micro surface coat on top of it or whether it's going to be a full replacement, depending on what the plan calls for. Gravel roads, obviously it's ditching, culvert replacement, grading, brushing to ensure proper drainage. So it's more extensive on an annual operating basis, but all of that is included in the cost of owning that asset that you see in the addendum report. So if I was to go back to the perfect scenario, I don't know, I try to put myself in council's shoes when I'm preparing this report, any report. I'm like, if I was sitting in their shoes, I would want to know, okay, so if we need to be doing this, or if this is what should be done as far as putting money away in reserves for all 2,722 assets in a perfect world, what would that look like to us financially? So I was able to approximate the numbers. So as you can see, what we currently fund for roads, structures, storm is approximately $1 million in capital a year. And then in water and wastewater, it's about $600,000 a year. That is over the course of the previous 4-year actual average and the current 2022 budget. And I took it over a 5-year stream because we've been most aggressive in the last 5 years with capital funding and capital projects. So it was a good snapshot of time to take into account. If the township were to adopt a financial strategy that ensured replacement of every water department capital core asset, it would need an annual investment of $262,000. If the township were to adopt a financial strategy that ensured replacement of every wastewater, it would be $409,000, and then $1.6 million for roads, which is a combined investment requirement of approximately $2.3 million. So when you take a look at it, we are underfunded by approximately $800,000 combined, $600,000 from the tax base, and then $200,000 from the user rates. The water side is currently funded well. It is sustaining itself. The wastewater side is underfunded by $265,000. And it's because the wastewater side, the assets are more expensive that are there. If we were to replace our wastewater treatment plant, because all of that's built in. So if we were to, part of this asset cost allocation for wastewater does include the replacement of that entire plant. So if you were to take the replacement of our wastewater plant and compare it to the replacement of our water treatment plant, quite a differential there as to, because we do a lot more as far as treatment goes on the wastewater side than we have to do on the water side, because our water coming out of the ground source is, from a quality perspective and a chemistry perspective, although it's hard, it's very good quality. So it doesn't require the same number of processes as it does to meet regulation, to take sewage and be able to output it into a water body such as the Ouse River. So that is the main difference between them. Also, that the fact that the water tower is now funded through funding and we have the money set aside for the township portion, it's not really playing a factor in the water numbers, which it would have 5 years ago. Excuse me. So the water rates would sustain. I would basically say they could potentially go down, but as we know, that's never ideal. The wastewater rates would have to take a significant increase from $34 a month to $52 a month, and 89 cents to $1.34 per cubic meter. That is not sustainable. As far as the township goes for the tax base, it would be a 14% one-time increase, result in property taxes per 100,000 of $1,742.91 from $1,500. Again, excuse me, 14% is just not sustainable. I believe I gave a pretty decent conclusion to the report. So Mayor, I'm gonna leave it with council for any questions.
Okay. Pretty in-depth report for sure. Thank you very much. Council.
Thank you through you, Mayor. Yes, it was a very in-depth report. I don't know about anybody else, but I did have to read through it several times to kind of grasp it. I know staff, you live with this every day and have for the last number of years. We see it every once in a while. So it did take me a little while to get my head wrapped around it. And just a couple of things. Certainly, I think the conclusion wrapped it up best is how it is certainly not in the best interest of the taxpayers to be able to, we'd be upping the levy by an incredible amount. So I certainly the direction we're going is certainly important. So yeah, I did appreciate the breakdown of the rates and the tax base and what was underfunded, and it makes sense to keep lobbying all levels of government in order to retain and continue to get funding from other levels versus the tax base. Just a couple of things that perhaps from the engineers moving forward, because as we know, there's other reports coming forward. If there could be an appendix in the report for the acronyms, because I know I had to look up HCB, LCB, infiltration gallery, and I didn't see it in the report stating what it was. And again, I know staff and the engineers know that, but for me, it's something that I had to look up to see exactly what that meant in the report. And then on page 59 of the agenda, I'm not sure what it is in the report, it had mentioned about the activity of with the gravel roads versus the HCB or LCB roads, and brushing and ditching was included with the gravel roads, but not with the hard tops. And with the hard tops, I realize that's done ahead of time, but there would be some maintenance in there along the way. So I just wondered where that fit in, if you can address that.
Brushing is not included in the asphalt. How do I put this? Because currently we have any gravel road that's in a poor or very poor condition, the odds are is because it hasn't been ditched properly. So if I don't know if you remember, but just prior to COVID, I believe it was 2019, we took a year where we didn't do surface treatment. All we did was ditching, and it was a huge capital cost because that's all our staff did for an entire summer was literally ditch. So it tends to be a capital cost because it goes over the capital financial threshold to do it, versus on an asphalt road, we will go out once a year, brush back the the intersections for clear lines of sight, or potentially if it's ditching, like it wouldn't be hard top if it wasn't ditched.
Yeah, exactly.
We,
Yeah,
because
exactly.
it wouldn't drain properly, so we wouldn't hard top it. So the ditching on a gravel road, it's gravel, so some of our gravel roads are ditched well, but it is a capital cost to get
Okay.
that road from a gravel condition that is considered poor to very good, because if a gravel road is in a very good condition, then it has appropriate drainage, appropriate brushing, and essentially we should be able to go in and hard top it.
Okay. Okay.
So it's just not hitting that capital
It's just
threshold.
kind of a difference in showing up where it is in the report.
Exactly.
Essentially what it is.
Essentially, because it's
Okay.
not, wasn't included in the asphalt annual costing, but it was in the gravel roads.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councillor Ward, please.
Yes, thank you through you, Mayor. Yes, a very detailed report, and I, like Deputy Mayor Burt, I had to go and look up some of the smaller numbers like HCV and LCV. I didn't know what they meant. So yeah, I don't live in the world of the township, that's for sure, staff. The second comment, I was wondering what kind of calculations for percentages you use for the CPI to come up with that. Like if you had a percentage that you use to calculate the average. And the last thing, because I'll let you answer all at once because of your voice. I was just wondering, it's been a few years since we as council have even been allowed to get together in person. I was wondering what it would be like maybe if we did a facilities and roads tour at some point, even taking it in smaller sections and just go by car, not renting a bus. But anyways, those are just a couple of questions and comments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So there's a construction index actually that's outside of the regular CPI that we would use for wages. There is a construction inflation index. So I took the average, the 5-year average of that, and I believe it was 4.7%. It was between 4.5 and 5%. So that's the average that I used. And I would suggest that potentially the road tour be brought back up in general business
Sure.
conversation.
Okay.
And I will add, I will get the Watsons to add on page 37, the list of acronyms and abbreviations, to add a few more acronyms on there too, the acronym list that they provided. The HCB is asphalt and the LCB is surface treatment.
I did find that.
Yep.
Oh, wow.
Actually, it popped up really quick. Good on Google.
Yeah, any other questions from council at this time? All right, seeing no hands, then the recommendations that we accept this report and that we adopt the asset management addendum for core assets as presented to ensure the compliance with Ontario Regulation 588-17. Motion by Councillor Walsh, seconded by Councillor Archer. Any other discussions on the motion? Seeing no hands, all in favor? That's carried with a show of hands. Thank you. Candace, no rest for your voice. R3 then, Candace, would be, this is regarding our East End Westwood Gate sign.
Thank you, Mayor. So at the June 14th meeting of council, members of council considered 2 pieces of correspondence received from residents, and the outcome of that was a motion directing staff to move the East End Westwood Gateway sign to the intersection of Centerline Road and Asphodel 3rd line at a location determined by township staff. So at management team the next morning, we had a comprehensive discussion. The manager of public works did a site visit and met back with me, and we had a discussion. And the result of that discussion is the motion and recommendation from staff. And that is that we leave the sign in its current location, but install a culvert, fill in the ditch to be able to move it further north away from the road and on more of an angle. And we will try to shape the sign to reduce its size if we can. We've got to call into the sign. We're not going to about to try to tackle that ourselves, but if we can make it so it still looks professional and can make it a bit smaller, no promises, but we are endeavoring to try to have that completed. Township staff are of the opinion that installing it in on one way, then all the 3, if you install it on Centerline Road, then if you're coming west into Westwood, you would see it, but if you're coming either north or south on the 3rd, you're not going to see the sign. So I believe probably intention was when that sign was originally placed in there, just inside the settlement boundary, it says, no matter which way you're coming in, you can see the Westwood sign. Either that or there is the option of purchasing signs and putting them on all roads. So the wording of the motion is a little bit different than what you've seen before, but because it was a previously passed motion, we have to follow our procedural bylaw, and it is a motion to reconsider.
Deputy Mayor, sorry, Councillor Warren.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. I think we had a healthy discussion at the last meeting, and I think that the recommendation has been well laid out, that this is a viable way of making sure that the sign doesn't encroach on the roadway, and hopefully that will make some of the residents happy. So I'm happy to move the recommendation for this motion.
Okay, now that it's been moved, do I have a seconder? Okay, Deputy Mayor Burt, more discussion on the motion. Any discussion? Seeing no hands, then all in favor? And that's carried unanimous. Thank you. Well done, staff. Okay, R4 then, Candace, would be their management action list.
Yes. Thank you, Mayor. So there is, you'll notice here, some June and July, but the Westwood well update, Peterborough Public Health staff have went on vacation till July 8th and are unable to communicate with township staff on the West well issue until after that date. The aquifer vulnerability and capacity studies, township staff have reviewed the draft and provided comments back to DM Wills. So we're confident that it should be able to come to the July 26th meeting. Preliminary development agreement for Wellington Street. Now that the LPAC case is over, next steps will be able to continue with that, as the developer will have to do the required studies prior to that development to ensure the wellhead is protected. So that'll come forward in July, as well as recruitment results for the medical center and town health caretaker, and transfer station attendant. I'm of the opinion, based on the Westwood well update not coming till after July 8th, Norwood Park Phase 4 zoning bylaw amendment, they were trying to have that done to come in July. That they're not going to be ready to come forward to a meeting earlier. So I believe that all of it can come forward on July 26th. After that, then you'll see August and September, and we'll start adding more staff reports for the August and September meetings.
All right, any questions on this action list from council? All right, seeing no hands, then the recommendations that we accept this report as provided. Deputy Mayor Burt, seconded by Councillor Walsh. Any discussion? All in favor? That's carried unanimous. Thank you. There's no correspondence for action. Councillor liaison reports. Anyone have anything to bring forward today? Deputy Mayor Burt, please.
Yeah, I just wanted to let council and staff know, both the mayor and I attended the county awards on Thursday evening. All went well. We had 6 award winners from the township. They were all in, they were all there with family members or friends in along with them, and it went well. There was 2 years worth of awards, and we had it wrapped up in about two hours, I think. So it went quite well. And if you have not been to the Millbrook Community Center, it's a beautiful building, so check it out. It is a lovely building. And then we haven't had a meeting, I don't believe, since the last council meeting. So tomorrow we have a county meeting, and there's 2 bylaws coming forward. The ATV bylaw and the official plan, the final version of the official plan. So we will see where those go after the end of the meeting tomorrow. So that's everything I have.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Ward, please.
Yeah, thank you, through you, Mayor. Yes, just 2 smaller items for Orca. They just had water levels, and they still remain high with the expected rain for this weekend. The Trent River will be having unseasonably high levels. So just a thing for the residents to be careful on the Trent River. And the second, and also there's been a new CAO that's going to be replacing Dan from Orca, Janet Lovey Smith. and she's going to be starting in July and shadowing Dan for a month. And she looks like an ideal candidate for the Autonomy Regional Conservation Authority. The second item for the liaison report on the historical gathering at the Norwood Town Hall. It was attended by about 50 people, really positive feedback, and 2 books have been donated from Kathy Storing Elmhurst to the Asphodel-Norwood Library and the Heritage Center. So thank you to all that attended.
Thank you. I just wanted to make a comment about that, the speech there at the town hall that we had there. I enjoyed it very much, and I apologize, I had to run out quickly for family matters. So I'd love to sat around and chatted some more. Okay, anyone else have anything under the liaison reports? Seeing none, no hands, okay. CAO clerks treasurers list and please, Candace.
Thank you, Mayor. So Victoria Street is slated to be paved tomorrow. So curbs went in and sidewalks went in. That's the latest update we got. I guess Mother Nature better cooperate.
Let's hope so.
But anyway, it'll be, if Mother Nature doesn't cooperate, I'm assuming it'll be done before, they're trying to get it done before Canada Day. So once that is paved, then we should be, you know, some odds and ends to sew up there, but the curbs look good, the sidewalk looks good. Once the asphalt goes down, we can hopefully not have to talk about Victoria Street in any upcoming meetings. That said, obviously the project ran from the pumping station, the Lions Club pumping station there, the Lions Club Park, all the way out to Wellington Street. So obviously Victoria was the bulk of the project, but they have been working across the easement and have worked their way to Cedar Street. There will be a closure of Cedar Street for approximately 3 weeks from where the easement comes out to north to Highway 7. So just that small little section there while they do the tie-in and go up Cedar to Highway 7. So we're going to start advertising that. The closure is going to commence July 4th, approximately. Again, it always seems to a day or two depending on Mother Nature. So, but that week it'll be closed, and it should be closed for approximately 3 weeks. Canada Day celebrations are well underway at the community center. It starts at 3 p.m. here. Lots to do for the family and children. And of course, the fireworks show will be on display at dusk. So hopefully council can attend and all the public can attend. Lots of fun things. Lots of great sponsors, which has been nice to see. Welcome night is tonight at 6 p.m. Here in the Millennium Room, as well as the Shop Local campaign has launched. We just had our first weekly winner, which is great. So remind all the residents, make sure they're submitting their receipts into Shop Local as much as possible. That does include, we're getting lots of questions as to, you know, what type of businesses are eligible. If it's a business and you're spending the appropriate money here, and it doesn't matter what business it is, you can submit your receipt. I think that's basically it. The playground survey, we are getting lots of responses to. It closes on the 30th. So I know we were over 150 responses. So we're doing well there. So we'll be able to provide those results and get moving and hopefully get that playground in so the kids can enjoy it a little bit this summer. The design for the Asphodel-Norwood Community Center Fitness Club has been finalized. So all of the public comments and those who attended the public meeting were all taken into account. So that's going to be released for public information and to council, hopefully this week. There has been some tweaks to it, to the internal layout, and I think it looks really, 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 really good. The all wheels park, the design has just commenced. There is some drainage concerns over there that we're having to address right now. So that's where we're looking at a survey, topographical survey, trying to figure out what we're going to do with the stormwater that sheets off the field and comes down to a catch basin here in the parking lot, because obviously through the gravel it does seep away there, where we're going to put that full of concrete, and obviously there's going to be in the concrete, so the concrete bowl and the concrete streetscape, they have drains. So when it rains, it drains off the skateboard park. Well, then that has to go down into some sort of stormwater system and get captured and brought away. So Peter and I in the Radius Contracting are working on the stormwater. And then once we get that figured out, we'll figure out what our footprint is and we'll be able to continue on with the design. And the banners are up. I don't know if council noticed, we had 4 brackets off of 4 hydro poles that disappeared. So we have ordered those. So I don't know if you noticed, nobody will have noticed, but we're 4 banners short because there was no brackets left on the hydro poles. They disappeared. So once they're in, we'll get them up. And once we have the contractor back to do street light repairs, we're not paying the bucket truck to come back to hang 4 banners. But once he's back in the village for street light repairs, then we'll take a look at that. We are getting some feedback from the residents in Norwood Park in regards to the speed signs. So now we're hearing the other side of the coin. So we heard the one side when we communicated out as far as residents concerned with the speed. Now that the speed signs are going up, we're hearing from the residents who say that there is no speed concerns there. And they don't want the speed signs installed in the subdivision. So council's direction was to have them installed. So we have the locates and we've taken some steps. They're not physically up yet. They're just seeing the locates and approximate locations of things and the buzzes and the conversation is going around. So I suspect we will be hearing some conversation about that at welcome night tonight. So what I'm going to do is, and I'll bring all of this back to council. I'm going to put out a survey to all of the residents in regards to, because we have equal number of people concerned that are not concerned. And we're considering putting them up on a temporary basis to collect data, the black hat going back up. Point of the matter is lots of chatter in the last week because those locates went in regards to those speed signs and they do not want them. These residents don't want them. So we're going to gather some information, talk to them, get some communication, maybe ask a few questions, bring all of that detail and all that data back to them because obviously they need their voice to be heard as well. May even consider holding a public meeting for all the residents up there to get them all in the same room, hammer it out, and then make one more final decision. Bottom line is, if you put the speeds, those speed signs are a huge asset to the township, and I do believe they calm speed wherever they go. I'm a firm believer of that. And if we temporarily locate them up there for a little bit and then they go to other locations, there are lots of other locations in this township that those speed signs can go. So I guess my point is I don't have all the answers for you today. I just wanted to make you aware that the conversation is active and they're very strong, strongly worded emails, and that we may hear from them tonight at welcome night in regards to it. So I am prepared to address and answer it, but I do think we'll probably need to engage that subdivision on this topic and take the opportunity, I think, because we're thinking about, the picnic shelter was slated, budgeted to be built up there this year. We do have the vacant space on Helen Street that we want to get some public feedback into what they would like to see there. So I think it may be a good opportunity. We'll see who all attends here, and then maybe we'll book another meeting for another chat on some other topics. But just a heads up for council on that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any questions on the list? Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Through you, Mayor, could I ask a question that Candace didn't mention, or will that be under general business? Just a quick question.
I have, you can ask me a question as long as it needs a motion asking general business, but you can ask me a question.
Okay, ball diamonds. I'm getting asked about the ball diamond
Yes.
all the time and when it will be fixed. That's the only question.
Yeah,
I suppose
I
you
may
were
have
too,
been
but I'm
asked that.
getting-
I may have
I'm
been
getting
asked
a
that
lot.
question. So yeah, the contractor has been here. They quoted it. We're on the list.
Okay, that's all I've said is we're on the list, but.
Yeah, as soon as we have a date, we're not gonna be quiet about it.
Okay,
As
thank
soon
you.
as we have a date, the world will know,
Thank you.
but we don't even know yet. Unfortunately, obviously fencing was gravely damaged in the storm as well. So getting a fencing contractor is like trying to get a tree contractor right now. You're on the list and they'll get to us. And there's other like school compounds and other things that just become a bit higher priority than recreation. So But we talk to them all the time.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good question. Anyone else? Councillor Ward?
Yes, thank you, through me. I was just going to ask about the Canada Day celebration. In case of inclement weather, I would assume that almost everything could still take place inside the arena portion.
Yep.
So that everything would go ahead, just in case anybody's watching that. We are going
It's
to
rain
have
or shine. Rain or shine, rain or shine. It's gonna happen.
Good. All right, no other hands, then we're on to general business then. And we had one thing that popped up for us for sure. Go ahead, Councillor
Yes,
Ward.
thank you, through you, Mayor. The one thing that did come up, I was wondering about the possibility of perhaps arranging a facility and roads tour for council, and any input would be greatly appreciated.
I'm good.
Anyone
Anyone else have any comments or concerns? Deputy Mayor Burke?
I'll just make a comment about it. I think it's a good idea. I'm not sure whether you want to wait till after the election, because we don't know who's going to be sitting at this table come October 25th. And also I would, we could maybe break it down a little bit. And I think Councillor Ward mentioned earlier in the meeting, it doesn't have to be as formal as a bus tour. It could be, after a meeting, and we could drive out from there, council could drive out from there. So I would be in favor of it. What it will look like or when, I guess those are more questions than answers. So something to think about moving forward.
Anyone else?
I have a thought.
Go ahead.
I think regardless of the election, it's always nice to see what you've accomplished during a term too. And I know you all live here, but I think if we shortlisted a few locations or items that are items of hot topic of discussion currently, or things that we have finished during your term that we could have an on-site, discussion about as a group, I think there's value in that. So staff can shortlist an itinerary for you and locations, present it to council for your consideration. By all means, locations can be added or taken away, but I don't see why we couldn't accomplish it in a morning by utilizing a couple of vehicles if people don't mind carpooling together. I think it's a great idea. And then of course, after the election, there would be, there's always one to just kind of orientate the new council. But I do think there's value at the end of the term as well.
Good comment. The other thing I was thinking, just to put that in there, is that it's still open to the public, so that like they'd have to know the itinerary, what we're doing, right? So,
Yeah,
If they want
it's a
to show
council
up.
meeting, yeah.
any other comments?
Just basically to echo everything that's been said, I think it is an opportunity to go see what we have accomplished,
Yep.
as well as potential opportunities, so definitely in favor. I think it's a great idea.
So is that something, Candace, I'll ask, should we have a motion for that to go forward, or is that something we just leave in staff? It's a
No,
motion,
I
that's
think you need to
something-
motion that you want a road tour.
Could we do it
yeah.
in August then, are you thinking? Or
Yes, I would think so.
July? I mean,
I'll have to take a look and present. I'll present a couple of dates as well. Just leave it with me.
Okay, so Councillor Ward, you'll make the
you
motion
make the
then?
Motion, right, but
We'll leave it in staff.
Just to direct staff to prepare an itinerary and details for a road tour.
Good job.
sounds really good, I'll make the.
No, Paul, sorry. You'd like to second that then, Councillor Archer?
Sure. yeah.
Okay. Any other discussion on the motion? We're all aware, all right, all in favor? That's carried unanimous with hands. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, next, there's no closed motion.
I think there's more general business.
Oh, I'm
Mayor.
sorry.
That's
So
okay.
sorry.
I'm sorry, one more thing.
Yep.
In general business, now that the provincial election has been done, and there's been a few people that have been appointed or continuing on in their minister roles, and I was wondering if council would like to send a letter of congratulations to David Piccini. He's continuing on in his role of Minister of Environment and Parks and Rec, and Peter Bethaflavi, and he's the Minister of Finance, and Kinga Surma, who's the Minister of Infrastructure. And I think that they've all really helped their township in the past, and a letter of congratulations would be in order.
Great. Seconder. Okay, Counselor Walsh. Any other discussion on the motion? All in favor? That's carried unanimous. Thank you very much for that. Is there anything else from council on general business at this time? All right, seeing no hands. Next on the agenda is the closed motion. There is none. No notice of motion. Then we're on the bylaws. Would you like me to read them?
Nope, because the only bylaw that we have is the bylaw to amend the zoning bylaw, which is for the public meeting. So you have two options. You can adjourn the meeting and we'll renumber them, or you can just take a recess for about 9 minutes.
Would council like to take a recess? Then, no, so we need a motion for that. So Deputy Mayor Burt, seconded by Councillor Walsh. All in favor at 1:50, and that's unanimous. Then we take a recess until 2 p.m. Thank you.